Hello everybody. We're going to start this by showing you one of my paintings I did a while back. This represents demonized masculinity. You can see at the four corners of the painting the evolution of weapons. Starting at the bottom, there's the bludgeon, and then the hammer, and then the axe, and then the sword. It represents the masculine principle as the protector and the tormentor, which is where the horns come from. Now, my book, The Law of Success, is not going to be available for a while, unfortunately. So, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about my psychological models. And everybody should know psychology. That's why we're going to start discussing psychology, getting used to it. So, several years ago, Bruce Buena de Mesquita did a TED Talk. And on that TED Talk, he had created an algorithm which he said could predict global events. So he applied it to Iran in order to determine what would happen in Iran. He predicted that the students would protest, which happened, and he predicted that Iran would eventually not get the bomb. At that time, I was creating my psychological models, and I said that his algorithm doesn't account for the psychology of the psychopath. As of today, with the exception of the protest by the students, my predictions based on my psychological models are absolutely correct, and his are completely wrong. I'm going to include a link in this video down below that has the blog that I wrote. The first blog was deleted by MySpace when they deleted their functions, their group functions and their blog function. Now, religion is an internal language. This is something that atheists don't understand. Religious terms describe an internal world. Now, the problem with religious people and atheists is that religious people have a tendency to externalize their internal world, and atheists have a tendency to internalize the external world. Science is a language that is created to describe the external world. I have a saying, all narrative is doxography. Now, what that means when I deconstruct a person's narrative is that people are like characters, and everything that they say comes from the perspective of a character, as if they're in a play and they're playing a role in a play. Everything that they do characterizes themselves to you, tells you what character they are playing. Now, in everybody's narrative, you have a tacit form of God, which is the highest form of their good, which they presuppose. Now, they don't always tell you this is the highest form of my good, but you see in all of their judgments and the way they arbitrarily project and retract their sense of self, this highest form of their good. Now, they have an antithesis to the highest form of their good, which is also their devil, which is the lowest form of their bad, or the opposite of their God. And these are the two opposite poles of the psyche of every individual, whether you like it or not, whether you're an atheist or what have you. Now, based on my psychological models, if you are born in a place where life is difficult, you are more likely to adopt or have masculine values, which means that the highest form of your good is more likely to be more masculine than feminine. If you are born in a place where survival is easy, then you are more likely to adopt feminine values, which explains why the Eastern world, China, the Middle East, Russia, they have a masculine bias, and why the West has a feminine bias. Because of the normative bias, which is a cognitive bias, we think that everybody thinks like we do, which means that we, in the West, attempt to establish dominance by being feminine, which is merciful, charitable, open-minded, accepting, and what have you. We think that we are demonstrating superiority by being peaceful. Atheists invite people to believe that humans are innately moral. But atheism is not a moral structure. It's not a social structure. It's a category. Atheists are not authorities on morality. Atheism itself is amoral. It's neither moral nor immoral. Now, what they're suggesting, what Christopher Hitchens suggested with the Hitchens challenge, is that any atheist can have any moral value. The problem with that logic is that it presupposes that atheists can pick and choose what their morals are, which means that essentially it's moral and philosophical anarchy. The other problem is that it presupposes that because humans are innately moral, that all moral values are equivalent. So if you're ISIS, then your moral values, which allow you to, rape children, stone women, cut off women's noses, throw acid in women's faces, burn people alive, are equivalent to everybody else's moral values because humans are innately moral. So one person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist, as it were. That's what's called a conflation. It's a logical fallacy. Now, assuming that humans are innately moral, or that morality exists innately in human beings, how did it evolve? Was it not through exerting an influence on ourselves to be moral? And would that not be religion? Noam Chomsky, who's famous for falsifying the behaviorists Skinner and the behaviorists and proving that the tabula rasa doesn't exist, was being interviewed a while back, and he said something pretty interesting. He said, if humans universally believe that God exists, which they do, all human beings anthropomorphize and have magical thinking. It's a social, what do you call it? A social universal. Then maybe before we try to get rid of these concepts of God and religiosity, maybe we should figure out why they exist in the first place. And I agree with that. My theories suggest that whatever patterns we repeat in the form of behaviors and thoughts creates neural myelination. All repetition creates neural myelination. And we pass that neural myelination on down to our children, predisposing them to have our skills and abilities and make judgments like we do. That's called epigenetics. And I propose an experiment to test my theory. Take a young female bonobo monkey and have her raised with chimpanzees before she has the opportunity to have any influence on her by other bonobo monkeys. And then take a male chimpanzee and have him raised with the bonobos and observe their behavior and see how well they adjust to their new environment. If I'm right, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, what you'll find is that the chimpanzee male will still be predisposed to violence and aggression, and the bonobo female, even in her different environment, will still be predisposed to acting like a bonobo female. Anyways, it's good talking to you. Y'all have a good day.